Hi guys, welcome back to Hear Our Voices. Thank you for listening for the past two parts of the podcast for this particular season 4. You guys are so amazing. Please check us out on all our social media platforms. Everything will be linked down below. If you want to talk to me personally, my information is down below too. And we can talk about any issues you might have. If you have any questions, you could definitely put it on in our DMs if you want to be private. If you want to put it out in a comment, it's fine. If you put it in TikTok, it's probably gonna get lost. I'm not gonna lie to you. But put more in Twitter and in IG, and then we'll definitely come back to you with that. I'm usually up pretty late. I'm trying to get better at that. So I'm up to down to talk about any problems you might have, any situation might be going on. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but I can help you to get one. So but I hope these episodes are helpful. I hope that you're learning some things from it. And I hope that you're living your best life right now. If you're currently in the situation, it's not going to be forever. And I hope that you're getting the help that you need. And if you're not, definitely hit me up because I can help you with some stuff. All right. Bye.
When the voucher is supposed to stop after 5 years. There's some circumstances that, after 5 years, you could push it on to make it more, like make it more than 5 years. The problem that we have is that most people are not going to qualify for after 5 years, but they put you in these luxury apartments or they put you in places that you can't really afford unless a person's really going out there to find another job to make sure if granted my HOA case closes or something happens, if you make a quarter, a penny more, they're kicking you off anyway. So if you don't know, city FEPs get paid by HOA. You go through home base to get it renewed and all this stuff, but you have to do a certain kind of, legwork for that. If you make over certain money, a lot of things getting cut off for you. That means no food stamps, no childcare.
Right,
If you have these
right.
things, no cash. Cash go first because they don't want to give you money anyway. The shelter allowance, all that stuff is gonna be gone from you. And if you can't pay that stuff without this extra help, you're gonna be screwed. So you got to think about a landlord is also scared about that. Also, you got to keep those things in mind. If you don't have a job that could pay for this without the voucher, and most times a lot of people can't pay it without the voucher. That's why they need a voucher in the first place. So
Yeah.
it's like a lose-lose in a lot of situations. And then after the 5 years, guess what? A lot of families are back in shelter because in a cycle, people who end up going to shelter one time, they're higher risk than most people to go back into shelter because, especially if they go out with a voucher. If you go to NYCHA, it's much more. I feel like it's harder because NYCHA. If you don't know, NYCHA will evict you. They don't play. Um, but they won't repair your apartment for another 2 years, but they want their money for their rent. But that's a different story. Which is crazy to me. But unless you move to like a NYCHA complex or something like that, you are higher risk of getting evicted and putting out. Like, let's be real, because after the 5 years of the voucher, most people cannot afford to stay in the place that they're in unless they get a huge boost from their job to qualify for that.
That's a really good point. I'm reminding myself now because it's like, I'm telling myself now, okay, Tiffany, let's, mentally, I'm kind of want to pretend my vouchers for like 1 year because, like you said, I don't want to wait till the end of 5 years and say, oh, how am I going to do this on my own? Because that's a really good question. So it's like, wow, it's like, let me try to figure this out now because you're completely right. When all this stuff stops, it's like, how do you avoid going back to a shelter? Who would want to go back to a shelter after that?
Right. It's so true. Shelter's not, I think people think that, oh my gosh, you go through shelter, you get housing right away. If you're in a position like me, you didn't even qualify for city FAPs. I qualified for no voucher assistance
Really? Wow.
because at the time it's different now. A little bit. I think it went back to the old time. At the time they had Link, which everything Link ish is in city FAPs, and I didn't qualify for FAPs, which I feel like I should have, but they said I didn't qualify. To get city FAPs, you
Did
have
they
to have
did they tell you
eviction.
why?
Yes. I had an eviction, which I really advocate to get that eviction. But because I didn't owe any money, it also didn't go on my credit score. But also because of that, I couldn't get a city FAPS voucher. They told me all you gotta do is get an eviction. And they told me that I had to owe money to the landlord too and have an eviction. So because I didn't have those two factors, I did not qualify. The money version of it, like how much money I made, I qualify for that part, but that's not you need to qualify for all these things in the box to get these vouchers. I think people think like, oh my God, you go in shelter, people still say, oh my God, get Section 8. If you don't know, guys, by the time you hear this, it's probably hopefully closed already. Not hopefully, but might be closed already. Section 8 is opening up back in New York City after 15 years. If you don't know, you can get a house through Section 8 after you having a voucher for a year. They might have changed that too, but that's what the rules were for Section 8. If you have your voucher for a year for Section 8, you can always get a home, and no matter what state. But and it helped pay the mortgage if you didn't get that clear out of that. But yeah, so it's very hard. People are like, oh my God, just go in the shelter, you're gonna get help. I was in there for a year and change. Granted, I left the country at one point and came back to America, so that's a different story. But after I came back to America, I was in the still shelter for a year and change. So it didn't even matter. Like, you know, so it's not just like 1, 2, 3, get in a shelter, do this and that, get a voucher. That's if you qualify for everything in the voucher. If you don't qualify for every little box, you do not get a voucher. So it's not as easy as just going in the path. People think it's, oh my God, they take everybody in the path. No, people by the hundreds get denied from path. They go to a shelter and they get denied. They're not eligible. They have to pick up their crap, bring it back. And Corona just said you can keep your stuff there. All you gotta do is do a phone call or go in person. Now they're like, Corona not that serious anymore. It's just a flu at this point. You have to come back in person. So it's like, it's not as easy as people say it's easy, you know? So just keep that in mind when you listen to this podcast, because well, it looks glittery. It's definitely not gold, I promise.
Yeah, definitely not goals, no.
Right. It's gold plated, but you know. I'm just saying, you gotta be realistic with these goals, you know. And I think being like people who never lived through it, who love to give advice. I know a cousin who did this, but do you know the real story of how your cousin went through shelter? Like, people want to give advice who know nothing about the system. Like, people are giving like, just go to shelter, you get out, get an apartment.
Yeah, I heard that a lot too when people knew I was having trouble with my roommate. I probably got about 6 people saying, "Oh, just go to the shelter, no problem, no biggie." It was like, okay. It's a lot harder than, of course, it sounds, and you do have to, like you said, you got to check all the boxes to qualify for this voucher and qualify for that. And like you said, they may send you back, said, you know what, you're not eligible. It's not that easy.
Exactly. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from going to shelter. I just want you to have a
Absolutely. If you
realistic.
have to go, get
Yeah.
involved.
We just want to make it realistic that is not, if you're lucky and if you're a person who makes a high earner and you get a soda program, you're probably going to be at a shelter much faster because you're a higher earner. Some people are really in the shelter because they don't have enough income to even make the high earner quota, so they have to rely on these other helps to get them out of shelter. Some people, they have a couple of people in their family who is undocumented, so they can't get a full amount, and then sometimes their stuff is not even looked at because they're not a documented person. They can't get certain vouchers. They can't get none of the vouchers at this point right now, to be honest, that I know of. They have, they change rules all the time, but that's how it is. So just be very mindful when you go into these places that not that people don't want to help you. They just they don't know what to help you with because they don't have the resources to give you help. Some people are just being lazy and not doing their job, but some people just don't have the resources for you to do, be great as you want to be great. So just be very aware of that. So as you said, you're a caseworker. You have 3 of them. They're doing 2 people's job, which is a little bit ridiculous to me, but I've heard this happen time and time again. I also had a couple of caseworkers myself, so I understand. So it could be, frustrating, but it seemed like they really wanted to help you. I'm happy. It seemed like you had a good experience overall in shelter, which is good. I like to hear good stories in shelter.
It really wasn't that bad.
Right.
It really wasn't that bad, and I think me working in a shelter,
right,
I knew to not come there with an attitude.
Right.
It's like, no matter how bad things are for you, you're not going to get someone on your side if you're nasty. So even though I may have felt horrible, I went in there and I tried my best to be nice to everybody. And I just kind of focus on that, because I remember working in the shelter, and when women are nasty to you, it's kind of like, whatever,
Right.
you're not really that motivated to help someone. So I tried to keep that in mind. while I was there, and my experience wasn't that bad.
That's good to hear. So, Path, you heard the name of the shelter. You heard that your people and the staff is not that bad. You heard the shelter not that bad. We have a lot of check marks right now in this podcast. I'm excited about it. I like to hear the positive stories because honestly, in every system, everything is not that bad. We do have a bunch of things to work on, and every shelter is not made the same. But I'm happy that you got the proper help, and you look like you were there for a year. If you don't know, the average family stays in shelter for over a year anyway, so that's on average. um, and it takes a long time for things to go through, and a lot of manpower, and especially this time after COVID, it takes a lot for them to kind of to do paperwork and back up stuff from like a year or two ago, because HRA was backed up like I want to say 2 years. And I only say that because they came from my case, and I even have an HRA case anymore 2 years later. So I assume that they're backed up by 2 years because of that. So, and I think if Corona did not happen, I feel like he would have got a shelter much faster, to be honest. They were backed up before, but because of COVID, it really made things much harder than it had to be. So I think honestly, if we didn't have COVID in the middle of that stretch, you would have got out much faster, to be honest. But yeah. You never told me, how did you find out about PATH? Maybe you said it and I just forgot.
I just Googled it.
Oh, really?
I was just like, okay, where do I go? I have a baby. I was like, I wanted to make sure I go to the right place. Because I know like men go one place, single women go one place, and women with children go one place. So I had to like just Google it. I worked at maybe one family shelter when I did work for DHS.
Got it.
It was a long time ago in Queens, and it seemed pretty chill.
That's
So
cool.
yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. If you could change one thing about the shelter experience for you, what would that be?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. What would one thing be? I guess what's the most important thing they need to change? Just have more. I guess that's New York City's problem, is just having more inventory on deck for when these vouchers do come up, to help people get out faster. Like 6 months turnaround.
Right.
Especially if you have, babies, get them in and get them out.
That's for sure. I don't like seeing babies born into shelter, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, and not having a kitchen and just having a small sink in the bathroom for your, yeah. I felt bad for the women with like newborn moms with their newborns and little babies, and they have to clean all these bottles, and
right.
I just know it was rough on them, and just having no kitchen is rough, but you do what you got to do.
Right. It's very weird to me how they put people in these small apartments or small shelter rooms, but they don't think about the conditions they have to really live in. Like, if you lived here, would you be able to survive properly? Like, you could survive. Granted, if I feel like if you put a human anywhere, they can do what they do, But if you know the average family lives in shelter over a year, do you think people should be surviving in this shelter without a proper sink? As you said, washing bottles. Granted, they open their clothes, they have to wash, something fast. It's kind of set into the clothes either before you put it to the laundry.
Exactly.
So you're thinking this is okay, like to really live in? Only the bathroom sink and no stove? Like, I don't.
Washer and dryer in the building would have been nice.
Yes, some shelters do have that. You gotta pay for it, but some shelters do have it. But even if you gotta pay for it, it is what it is. It probably, I think, should be a little bit cheaper. Should not be almost the same rate as outside. A wink, wink to whoever's listening, because I feel like if you're gonna have a laundromat in the building, and it's almost the same price as outside, it don't make sense. I know it's a little bit cheaper. It needs to be like $1 at this point.
Right? It's like, come on, I'm not working. I'm homeless.
Right. Like, let's think about it. You know how much HRA is given to people for cash assistance. We're working on helping getting that up to par also. But I'm just like, people are not getting that much, so get it together. But it's just, I think people need to really be realistic with these things. Why would you think that's okay for a person to live like that? Maybe if it was a single person and get them that space, it'll be much easier for them to survive. And honestly, why should a person have to live without a stove? Like, it should be, honestly, that should be okay for anyone, whether they're single or a family. Because why should a person live without a stove? Why should we have microwaves only for food? I don't even like microwave food. I didn't grow up with microwave food. I'm lucky I got an air fryer. Like, I grew up with all my food made on the stove. Granted, I hate to cook, but I would prefer to cook over microwave food. I had a microwave at one point.
I just did a lot of like rice and beans, because you can't buy, sandwiches and all this stuff every day because that adds up very quickly.
It does.
And the money on your EBT card will be gone.
It sure did. I bought a lot of food. I'm not gonna lie on my EBT card, and I bought cooked food. I'm not gonna lie to you. The store allowed me to do it. The store's out of business now, so I can say that. But I feel like they should also be having people in shelter. They say they give me more money, but I feel like I got the same amount of money. They should be having to get more money on their card, because especially if they're in a shelter where it does not cook. Like, are you serious?
Good point. That is a good point.
They should have more money. They say they do it, but I feel like our money.
You're gonna have to dine out. Yeah.
It did not look any different to me. So I think they need to make sure the money's also think about inflation. You give me $100 extra, it's not doing a thing. We needed like a $200, $300, because personally I don't like microwave food, and it's not even that healthy to eat microwave food. I bought food out almost every day when I was in shelter, and I didn't work that much money. So I had to buy food almost every day for me and my daughter. Luckily, mostly for myself. My daughter ate at school, and because after a while I told the daycare provider that she was in the shelter, she'll give her extra food before she went home. So my daughter was covered. The shelter had like a lot of, the one I was at had like cereal and microwave food. Again, I was not eating that crap. My daughter didn't eat it. I didn't eat it. The most we did was cereal and forks and sporks. That's all I took up to my room. That's what I took into my new house, my apartment. It wasn't working for me. I would like when they gave pizza, when like people outside would give pizza and stuff like that, before the staff got to it. The staff would also eat our food, which is ridiculous. But yeah.
We did have a cafeteria.
Oh, really?
Well, let me tell you what the cafeteria had. It was very useful.
That's good.
It had like dry cereal bowls. It had fruit. Sometimes the fruit was awesome, sometimes not.
We had fruit also, yeah.
And they also had like formula bottles for the little babies. I was impressed by that.
That's nice. That's nice.
And just a fridge with like little milk containers that you get in school. The little TV dinners that they hand out in the shelters, and juice. So I was happy, because it's like, the days that I'm, about to run low on EBT, because I could go to the cafeteria, I can get my daughter some muffins, some juice. So yeah, my experience wasn't that bad.
That's good. That's good. I did have some muffins sometimes. I'm not a muffin eater, but when you're in a pinch, you kind of
exactly. If you're hungry, you're go eat it.
Right. I did have the milk, but I don't drink milk like often. My daughter liked milk, so I got the milk for her. I bought a lot of food. I'm not gonna lie to you. I bought food almost every day, so that was just the life I lived. But yes, guys. So if you're listening to this, right, and you had to change one thing in shelter, if you got this far, comment down below. Well, I think not all the platforms have comments though. So put us on Twitter under our post when we post this episode. That what's one thing you would like to change about the shelter system that you lived in? Or what do you see that needs to be changed if you didn't live in the shelter system? Because some people never live in the shelter, but they still think there should be changes. So if you're that person who would like to, share your views and see what things we could work on, because I work with CCC and with the Family Homeless Coalition, and we work with policies and we do different things like that, and we try to push certain things we think will be able to be helpful to change people's lives in shelter. And CCC does stuff with children in general. So we would love for your input. Probably they don't love it, but I would love your input. I should say. I can't speak on the whole company, but I would like to see what you think about what we're talking about. And not just only, me talking to you, but I would like for you to engage with us also. So please check us out on all platforms. And thank you for listening. And talk to you guys next time. Thank you for listening to Hear Our Voices. Bye.